Hello and welcome to the Daily Comic and Collectible, episode 394. Now today, the collectible of the day is the TOYBIZ Toys, Marvel Comics, Amazing Spider-Man, 1/6 scale, Green Goblin collectible figure. A laboratory accident involving an experimental formula granted Norman Osborn superhuman strength, a heightened intellect, an accelerated healing factor. The same accident also robbed him of his sanity and turned him into Spider-Man's greatest enemy, the Green Goblin. No villain before or since has done more to throw the web-slinger's world into chaos. This 1/6 scale figure stands a full 12 inches in height and is fully articulated with 26 points of full articulation for posing and display. This figure is intricately detailed and is made of a heavier polystone type material. Green Goblin is in full costume and is fully hand-painted and carries 2 shoulder bags for carrying his famous pumpkin bombs. This is a vintage figure and created almost 20 years ago and was released by TOYBIZ worldwide. It was also a prize tag that I received from Justin at 3 Good Nerds that he won on SpineTick's YouTube 7K subscriber giveaway. So thank you guys so much. Now, the comic of the day for this awesome piece is Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 1, issue number 136, with a cover date of September 1974, with story by Jerry Conway, art by ANDRU, and cover by John Romita Jr. This issue is titled, The Green Goblin Lives Again. After an afternoon out on the town, Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson decide to spend the rest of the day at Peter's apartment to listen to a new Ella Fitzgerald record he just purchased. When they arrive at the apartment that Peter has been sharing with Harry Osborn, Mary Jane insists on unlocking the door herself. As she begins to turn the key, Peter's spider sense begins to warn him of danger. Before he can get Mary Jane to stop, a bomb on the other side of the door goes off as she turns the lock. Although Peter manages to shield Mary Jane with his body, the blast injures her and renders her unconscious. After checking to see if Mary Jane is okay, Peter hears sirens of approaching police cars. Rushing into his apartment, Peter quickly webs up his Spider-Man gear into a web ball and tosses it out to the roof of the apartment next door. He then goes back to Mary Jane just as the authorities arrive. 40 minutes later, Peter Parker is at the hospital where he's told that Mary Jane is expected to recover and he's allowed to visit her. When Mary Jane wakes up, she asks Peter what happened, but he promises to tell her later. The whole situation gets Peter thinking about the Green Goblin and how he killed his girlfriend, Gwen Stacy. Although he's convinced that Norman Osborn is dead, Peter suspects that the Green Goblin is back. He changes into Spider-Man and goes to investigate Norman Osborn's old lab. He looks around to find that nothing appears to be disturbed, at least initially. However, he discovers that the dust on the floor is merely dry soap, used to disguise the fact that someone has been here recently. Suspecting that the person responsible will return, Spider-Man webs up a hammock and decides to wait. Sure enough, hours later, Spider-Man is alerted to the presence of someone coming into the secret lab. He's shocked to discover that it is none other than the Green Goblin, who comes rocketing in on his Goblin glider. Although his foe claims to be the real Green Goblin, Spider-Man has already deduced that his opponent is actually Harry Osborn. He tries to talk sense into his roommate and friend, but Harry seeks to avenge the death of his father. The two fight it out, and the new Green Goblin begins to gain the edge in combat, because Spidey is pulling his punches. Ultimately, the Goblin uses a gas mixed into the exhaust of his Goblin glider to knock Spider-Man out. Finally, having the wall crawler at his mercy, the Green Goblin attempts to give Spider-Man a fatal jolt with his electroblasts. However, he soon discovers that he's overtaxed the power source in his gloves. With Spider-Man recovering from the gas, the Goblin decides to flee, vowing to destroy Spider-Man. Later, Spider-Man changes back to Peter Parker and goes to the Daily Bugle, where he asks J. Jonah Jameson for a week off, but is denied unless he wants to be fired. Furious, Peter quits instead. As he storms out of the office, Betty Brant attempts to see how he's doing. Peter tells Betty to butt out of his business and storms out, vowing that nobody will interfere in his life ever again. Geek Fact: this is considered a key issue, featuring the first appearance of Harry Osborn as the new Green Goblin. Bonus Geek Fact: Peter recalls how the original Green Goblin was responsible for the death of Gwen Stacy, and seemingly died himself in the final battle with Spider-Man. These events occurred in Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 1, Issues 121 and 122, from June and July of 1973. However, Norman is not dead and survived, as explained in the Osborn Journals, Volume 1, Issue Number 1, from February of 1997. The Green Goblin resurfaces in Amazing Spider-Man, Issue Number 412, from June of 1996. Another bonus geek fact: Harry discovered his father was secretly the Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 123, from August of 1973. Since then, Harry has spent the issues leading up to this story discovering his father's equipment and confirming his suspicions that Peter Parker is really Spider-Man. Yet another bonus geek fact: Peter quits his staff photographer job at the end of this issue, which he had finally negotiated in Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 99, from August of 1971. Geek Trivia: Peter states he bought the new Ella Fitzgerald album. Given the date of publication, it's referring to Fine and Mellow, released in 1974. Her last album was released in 1989, and she died in 1996. And final geek fact: Norman Osborn was approached by Mephisto, offering him a deal to make him financially successful in exchange for his son's soul. He refused, but after being told if he accepted, he wouldn't remember the encounter. So he took the deal. Mephisto made Norman's business life successful, both financially and in status. But due to his tainted soul, it also made him relentless and obsessed with wealth and power. It also affected his son, that would suffer great misfortune until Spectacular Spider-Man, issue number 200, from May of 1993. Norman was eventually granted total control of Oscorp, becoming CEO. When going through his ex-business partner's notes, he found a secret formula that would make him superhumanly powerful. However, his son Harry, tired of being ignored and rejected by his dad, switched the chemicals in the serum, causing it to explode in his face. At the hospital, Norman found himself thinking more clearly than ever, not knowing he was reaching insanity. Attempting to achieve power beyond his wildest dreams, he planned to become the most powerful gang lord by uniting all gangs in New York under his leadership. To prove his power and establish his reputation, he chose Spider-Man as his victim of choice. He sent Scorcher and Headsman after Spider-Man, but both were defeated, so he took matters into his own hands. Remembering a giant green goblin monster from his childhood nightmares, he created a costume that resembled the monster, and that's when Norman became the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin's first appearance was in Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 14, from July of 1964. Well, I'd like to thank you for joining me for another Daily Comic and Collectible, and I hope you found it entertaining. And happy 4th of July! This is Cat Fan Comics Man, and I'll catch you on the flip. Over and out.